indaba yokuthi ama-legislators iproblem ngeyethu ngenxa yokuthi yithe sibavoteleyo iyahlupha ngoba imithetho ekhona esesikubone kusenzakala on practice ukuthi siyathi simvotele umuntu angithi ukuthi omunye umuntu ongekho leparliament abantu abangamvotelanga ngenxa yokuthi yena ngumkhokheli waleyo party ethi yena siyakurecalla angithi so khona phana yiko embone ngani vele ilokhu zen iprocess yena lana yokuvotela umuntu yifake vele.
Ngiyabonga lami ithuba engiliphiweyo ngombuzo. Ngicela ukuqala ngokuthi ngithi every government ekhona emhlabeni is potentially dangerous. Every government on earth is potentially lawless, potentially corrupt, potentially an abuser of human rights. Every government has a capacity to rig elections. It's not unique to Zimbabwe. Corruption can be everywhere, it's not unique to Zimbabwe. But what is different is the citizens of those countries. All governments are the same. What is different is who? The citizens. Ngiyakuba bunyathe embuzweni wakho ukuthi sehluleka nga. Uyabona abantu bezimu ngendlela abangakhona, lami ngingabachova 40 years abangeke banhluphe. Belamba bangaswela isepa ngithe butswana bayebuya la baswela impuphu ngithe South Africa okwami nyabe mba director kuphela ukuthi itholakala nga. That's the difference. The difference is to be found with Zimbabweans. The political culture of citizenship as a Zimbabwean, our roles as citizens. Do we understand what it means to be a citizen of a country, not a refugee in your country, not an asylum seeker in your country? You take responsibilities, not the judiciary that protects you from abuses. It's not parliament that will defend your rights. It's you. It's you. So that is very, very important to understand that we have put our faith into these institutions and run away from our responsibilities as citizens. So we have to go back to assuming our roles as citizens and take charge of our destiny. As I'm saying, if you check a country where you think when you are ranking the countries in terms of the corruption index, it is the lowest ranked. In other words, it is the least corrupt. It is because the citizens there make that country the least corrupt. By the government they elect and how they check the government to ensure that there is no corruption. This government, if it were in another country, it would not have been here for 40 years. No, it is not because it has the capacity to rig elections, but it has weak citizens. Its biggest advantage is who? Weak citizens who do not take responsibility of their rights as citizens. So it is important that we stand up, we assume our roles, we defend ourselves, we defend our territory, and as I'm saying, every government on earth can do what this government is doing. But they are not doing what this government is doing because the citizens there can't take the nonsense. Can't take it. Zimbabweans, they will go into the streets. My sister was talking about so revolutionary minded. Revolution, a peaceful one. Zimbabweans, they go into the streets. One person is beaten up. We shoot pictures. We wait for the United Nations. Kati manje bayasiyekela sichaywa, that's what they say. In other countries, they stay in the streets regardless of 1,000, 2,000 people dying until they see the change. Tina, we are not prepared to sacrifice for the democracy we want. We are not prepared for the rule of law, or to sacrifice for the rule of law we want. We want it to come cheap. We want the detector to volunteer rights to you. You want umuntu corrupt to share with you. That's not going to happen. You have to fight for it. That's very important. Let's assume our responsibilities as citizens. There is no government. It is as potentially dangerous as any other government. But the difference is that this one has been given a free pass by the citizens themselves. A free pass by who? Citizens.
Amen. Amen.
Quite recently, my last part on it, if you go to Sudan, everywhere where people have changed the corrupt governments and replaced them with another government, they had to do immense sacrifices to get that done. Do we love freedom and justice more than we fear dictatorship? That's the question. If we don't, we will stay here. If we do, we will make the significant changes, first in terms of a culture of activism, and engage proactively to usher in the change. Then on the issue of Ibinga, I'm glad that my brother there situated the quest for peace in the district of Binga. Because as I say, the peace is contextual and situational. It depends on your circumstances. Sometimes your lack of peace, the absence of peace in your area is because you have a corrupt councillor. That is the threat to the peace that you want to enjoy. You have to deal with that in your situation. The issue of Binga is again a reflection of failure of Zimbabweans to achieve an inclusive approach to development. Binga is a host to resources we need, and Binga is not just uniquely that way. It's for many communities. You go to Wange, we have this electricity here. We are not generating electricity. You go to Wange, you see 2 pylons. The other one going straight to Harare, the other one going straight to Bulawayo. Don't you see that? Yeah. You are in Kariba, immediately from that big station, pylons going to Harare, pylons going to Bulawayo. The communities who are hosting the resource remain in darkness. It's more pronounced in Binga, of course, because of the historical context in terms of displacement of the people. But this is what people have to live with. In Cholocho, in Binga, everywhere, they are simple hosting resources and looters will come and loot because Zimbabweans have allowed the culture and also to feel that they are somehow unique in the world. There is no uniqueness we have. If we want democracy, we will have to fight for democracy. If we want our vote to mean something, we will have to defend the vote. If you vote and somebody takes away your vote and you complain your way to your bedroom or to your sitting room, that's not the solution. They will simply stay there and rig another one again. Thank you, my brother.
I was reminded of history, Amiga Form 1, where we learnt about Ilumpen proletariat uprising, which there will be this revolutionary uprising from the common people, because they've had enough of the suffering. And I think as Zimbabwe we've hit a rock bottom so many times. We think we've reached bottom, and then it's bottom. So what is needed to push us to the brink ukuthi lathi we feel to know we've had enough, because we are right next door to South Africa where they are always protesting this, protesting that, and from where I'm sitting izinto abazprotest are izinto ezincane. We've seen it happening in Zambia. Sebetshintsha president I don't know how many times, but yet siyabe sikhuluma what we want to be like the Zambians, we want to be like the South Africans. What is needed in Zimbabwe for us to feel ukuthi enough is enough? We need to change, because we may acknowledge ukuthi there is nothing unique about izanu government, tina ama citizens iti weak, but what is needed to make us strong enough to stand up and defend our vote?
Umbuzo enlawo is directed to Ncube. I think ama problems la esilawo eZimbabwe, especially when it comes to the aspect of peace and or conflict transformation. I always have a debate, especially when it comes to a civic space. Are we still credible civil society organizations in this current Zimbabwe? Kumbe lathi sesizana P5. Because ama civil society amaningi, they have simply now adopted the very same system ama preacher against. There is too much politics ku civil society. Uyaphelelwa amandla. Uthole bona kuthiwa bayasolve peace, yibaba le conflict enkulu udlula umuntu wonke. So disease wenelana esithi siyayibalekela, have we not gotten to a point of ukuthi sesiyithethe lathi sayifaka sathi sizasebenzisa? And at the same time, as a civil society, are you not appeasing funders instead of abantu? Because in the majority of cases, sigijimisa ama report, but we're not doing the work. So is civil society on its own, wena la ngokubona kwakho Ncube, do you think it is still credible? Is it still serving its mandate? Is it still a powerful, separate institution that is going to be a check and balance on the current government system?
Ngiyabonga, ngicela ukuqala ngombuzo kadade. In terms of what is it esikudingayo for us to have a proactive approach to our circumstances, to changing our circumstances. I think the starting point it will be, at least on sort of as key pillars, is to have leaders who understand that they need to do something and not just to occupy offices. Because revolutions are inspired by leaders. If you have leaders who can't inspire action, they are not good enough for the situation. So that's very, very important. We need to put in place, maybe they are there, I'm simply saying, but what you need are people who are able to inspire action from citizens. Not leaders who will complain. I know that, for instance, from the opposition standpoint of view, they start talking about the possibility of an election that is going to be rigged the day after we elect. For the next 5 years, they are telling us that actually that election is going to be rigged. The one we are going to. And they are not talking about the solutions to the rigging. So we need to generate a leadership that understands that they have to do something. We also have to localize our resistance activities. You gave an example that I love, the South African model. In South Africa, if you are here in Hillside and you have a problem, people here in Hillside will take action. They don't wait for others to do that for them. So we need to localize resistance, create localized leaders at a local level. It will be very difficult, but we need to begin to put people in place who will assume the responsibility of driving the change we want. And those leaders rise up to a level where they then assume the national responsibility, armed with localized experiences of resistance. That's very important. And let me pair that, as I still answer you, my sister, with what my brother said. The problem with political parties who run the country in a bad way for a long time is that they create a political culture, an ideological slant that informs society the way people conduct themselves wherever they are. ZANU has stayed too long, and for its stay in power, its toxic approach to politics its attitude now informs the way churches make decisions. Umfundisi lapha ukhona eduze. Benza tshela yena. The way usuthola ema-church kuyiwe court umbishop uyaloku uphuma esikhundleni. You can't believe it. Kuze kuyiwe court bishop uphuma phela constitution nansi. Ale. That's the zanification of the church. Because what has been created as a result of ZANU is a culture of ZANUism, isn't it? Doing things like ZANU but not being in ZANU. Being inspired by the culture of ZANU but not being a member of who? ZANU. So it is not also in civil society. We are the same. We are products of a political and social culture that has been created, nurtured over the past 4 decades. And because we are like that, we are unable now to channel the resources that we have for the betterment of the change we want. For many people, we deploy so much resources to ourselves, isn't it? In other words, in civil society, every year what I have earned from the organization and not what I have put into the organization. What I have earned for myself and not what I have put into a society that I'm supposed to serve. And that's the culture that has come from who? Those that are governing. It's about them getting from society and not giving back to society. And that culture, the most important thing, this direction and not that direction. There is no bi-directional conversation anymore and engagement. So we focus on me or in power and not you who is supposed to be safe. So we have to be aware, like in South Africa, they fought against the National Party, but you can forget that the National Party is an entity like those that are governing that can be removed tomorrow. Yes, we can get rid of ZANU-PF, but for how long will the culture of ZANUism remain in Zimbabwe? Because it's now so deep, it goes so deep, out you and I are walking ZANU singakwazi. So what created that mentality in us, so much so that as a only difference. Thank you very much.
Okunye ukuthi lathi as Zimbabweans we've individualized collective issues and also politicized national issues. You find, for example, lapho we have the problem yamanzi, auntie. But instead of people collectively grouping and gathering to try and push for a permanent solution to yamanzi, some of us, we can afford to rather buy a majojo tank. That's the end of the story. The pressure is equal. So the problem is like, which if you can do away, and also, in Jala, I think, because the system has shown us that if you want to benefit, if you want to be something in this country, you have to be part of the system. So you find in most instances, we are fighting to be part of the system instead of against the system.
The observation ngamalinga, because the observation le, I have come across it in different versions, but in my view it ends up with the same outcome. Abantu bangenzi lutho. People will say, ama-NGOs angakhona wona lawo kuyafanana lokho. Ama-trade union angakhona lana kuyafanana lokho. I-election yangakhona naleyo uyabe usiyadingani kuzarikwa. Whilst those things are factual, akula dispute about that. There is no dispute about what Malinga said, in my view. There's no dispute. The biggest question is, how do we, in that environment, find a solidarity amongst those who view Izintas Chiloyo as things that should not happen? All the things as Chiloyo are evil. The state actually benefits from people saying, lokhu vela kusebenzi lokhu, lokhu vela kusebenzi lokhu. At what point do we actually say to this state, to this regime, this country does not belong to you, it belongs to us? At what point do we say that? At what point do we say you can corrupt every institution that you seek to corrupt, but our country deserves something better? That is what we will organize ourselves to achieve. At what point do we do that? I think that observation throws a challenge to us, in my view. The same challenge, I agree 100% with Effie. This regime does not own this country, it's owned by us. Yes, it has power to suppress our wishes. Yes, it has power to make us uncomfortable, but it does not own this country. How do we, the owners of this country, take it away from these evil men? How do we avoid being co-opted into evil because of the power of these men? I think that's the challenge we have. How do we refuse to normalize the abnormal? I had a privilege some years back where I saw a minister in a country that is extremely rich, that has resources that no other country has, riding a bicycle to work. And you come to a country as poor as this one, the minister goes to work in a Mercedes-Benz. And we as citizens cheer it up. That minister who rides a bicycle is because the taxpayer says we are not willing to pay for your Mercedes-Benz. Ride on a bicycle. So I agree with Effie. It's up to us. The question is, at what point do we give each other sufficient courage to stand up against that evil?
Zimbabweans are very good at talking. Actually, they are very articulate. Ngamthatha umZimbabwean umhlanganiso lo South African. Ukhuluma kunye umali sayo ongakaze ubonakala. Kodwa iaction akula. Kathi kuyini esingakwenza ukuthi laba abantu abakwazi ukukhuluma kangaka babe kwazi lokwenza. Because ukukhuluma akulethi lutho. Ongaze ukukhuluma indlela emangalisayo sisuke la namhla sikhuluma silapha eMasakhaneni. Sasa sise elokuzeni lapha neRainbow. Sasa sise Harare, sasa singaphi ngapha umnyaka uphelile kodwa wenziwanga lutho. I think that's where our problem is. We specialize in talking instead of doing. Even the opposition, that's what they do. They just talk. Even when it's time for elections. Bahamba bafuna abantu abavutheneyo eralini. Baze barentelwe lama crowd. Bangafica abantu begcwele kumnyama twasesiwinile. Yet they have no strategy. I think we are the same, lad. We talk, but we don't have a strategy. We have a talking strategy, I guess, but not a strategy that can be effective in terms of causing change. Senze njani? Kumbe abantu abafundileyo nje umfundisi udokotela lapha nechilo. Ukuthi abantu beZimbabwe, they have a lot to lose. What can we do to make the people that are educated do something to cause a change? I think that's where our challenge is. If we can stop talking today and begin to do, things will change.
Sile kulesikhiwa inesithi hotelized into yenzeke hoteleni kanjalo. Khona lapho I-advocacy yemahoteleni ethu. Civil society has empowered, has been the biggest generator of profits for hotels. Through conferences, focus group discussions, this and so forth. But on the ground, as my brother is saying, we have failed to convert the anger, the transgenerational and intergenerational anger, into action on the ground. We always describe the problem with all our names, siyalamba, siyahlupheka thina, siyathintini. And we overdo waiting for others to do. I think that is where the greatest mistake for Zimbabweans is. They expect that somebody who is not Zimbabwean is going to bring about change in Zimbabwe. That is what we are busy looking for, a solution outside the country when the solution is here, domestic. So action will only come when we accept that the EU, that the US, that SADC, that the AU, that the United Nations is not going to bring about change in Zimbabwe. Change will be brought about by Zimbabweans themselves through action. Changing theory into action. That is the kind of advocacy that is needed now.
Ungani asikwazi sonke ukuthi into okuthiwa ngamandla akubani. Into levela asiyazi. Sikhohliwe ngayo. That's why sisenelisa ukumelela omunye umuntu. Sikhohle ukuthi bona abantu yithi esibaqhatshayo izithunywa zethu. Asibo bobhosi bethu. Yizithunywa zethu. But how come besikhulela bona beyiba abaqhatshwe yithi? Kambe sokwaqhatha umuntu wabuya wakukhulela wena ungomqhatshileyo. Amandla they are within us. Yinto kufuze sibe yazo naleyo. Umuntu nxa engayenzi kuhle yithi esilelungelo lokumkhipha. Akula umuntu ozasuka EU ngale ezomkhipha lapha eZimbabwe. Thina sihlezi. It can't.
Sinanzelele imbali esilayo our history of conflicts. Sichilo ukuthi kuground yayinjani. Satsho lokuthi sokule voter apathy. Sibonile ngo-2018 August 1 abantu unarmed fleeing civilians bebulawa. Kwenzakalani? So into esihlupha kakhulu mina ukubona kwami disturb ipeace yethu. Even the people okufanele ngathi yibo abasikhangelayo amasotsha ethu. Ngoba ngazi mina amasotsha engawe security ngithi. Kodwa USS wesaba kulaba ama dark glasses. Kube lana lana sababonayo betshaya 45 degrees ngo-August 1 2018. Ngubani phakathi kwethu ongafisa ukuthi uhlamvu lumchaye? Nxa umuntu ebaleka ngitsho kuthiwa khona you actually fire at a fleeing woman. Kambe ubengabe siza kuwe wena umhlabe ngemuva. IZimbabwe has been militarized. Democracy yethu militarized. So kunzima. Siyafisa sibili ngoba kula muntu okuthandayo ukuthi ahlale ine abe isiceli. Uyazi yathi sebutswana utshela ukuthi ungumtswana kaBhampiri. Kuthi emaZimbabwe alapisa hamba nini kini. Uyazi ukuthi kubuhlungu njani ubungumngane umuntu ogalilayo. But this is the situation. Amasotsha sabesaba, abama dark glasses sabesaba, ipeace kayisekho. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you very much. I want to thank most of you for your contribution because it gives some of us and UPTN a very serious encouragement, because what I am hearing now is a national narrative that is composed of different regions and groups as they air their own contextual crisis and their needs. I think to me that is fundamental, because for a long time we have been fighting lone battles. But when we begin to listen to each other and begin to recognize that each one has got his own problem that he wants solved, and together our narratives become our national narratives as Zimbabweans, coming from all kinds of backgrounds, is a very, very significant approach in terms of strategy of what we should do. We must frame our crisis and frame our battles and frame our war in such a way that it gives opportunities for others to join with their own issues as well. And when we do that as a strategy to bring about change, we will be able to get somewhere, because at the end of the day, if we rise up just as people from Binga alone, there's a story that is said when the problem came next door, I said, next door, I learned that. And then it came to the other person and says, I learned that. Until all those neighbors were finished, and that Iskebenga, the son, ended up coming to me. I then had nobody to protect me. Unless we begin to recognize that we all have problems, and all of us need solution, and we pull together without necessarily saying so-and-so is more important than so-and-so. I think that is a good way. I also like a situation where I think Ndebele, as far as I'm concerned, can be a leader for Zimbabwe because of our experience. When we are able to frame our struggle in such a way that this issue is a Zimbabwean issue, even though it came to us in this specific way, in such a way that Mamais begin to talk about people, I think there were 6 people that were killed in Harare. Yeah? But there are 6. But she's bringing it as an issue. Without us saying, no, we don't want to hear about that. No, I'm being honest. In order for us to achieve this, we need each other to hold hands, to close ranks, and work together towards one goal. Sorry, somebody have to explain to him and others that don't understand what I'm going to say. Sile silo. Isilo les kumele sisibandezele ekhoneni sonkeni. Singayekela sisithi thina hayi lowana nguye ozasilwisa asibulale thina sisake senze lokho akusoze kuphumelele lokho.
I think engxelo Dr. Motse ngavumelana nami. Bese ngeke ngezwe issue ama academics being raised ukuthi ubona what is their contribution to this cause. Maybe from my personal experience as umuntu who studied lapha eZimbabwe lase South Africa. If you go to South Africa, whatever problems are being faced, ama academics are roped in to do research to try and inform policy, angithi. But in the context yalapha eZimbabwe, ngezanu lesilayo, akula muntu ofuna ukuinforma ipolicy bemkanja. So at the end of the day, they will never rope us in as ama academics. Thina okwethu siphelela ekubhaleni amaphepha criticize, but it just ends there. Singaze sibhale, ungaze wenzeni, ubhale ungaphi, phansi kwesihlahla, kumbe building enhle. Still the ideas will forever end with paper and pen. So as academics, we tend to get frustrated. That is why sisiba le brain drain eneng. Umuntu esithi ngcono ngeke kwelinye ilizwe. Ngiyezama khona le better pay. So that is what is happening with us academics. Angazi maybe Dr. Motse la uzavumelana lami ukuthi we really have so many frustrations.
I think on that, my view would be first and foremost, let's understand the difference between having people in leadership positions and having leaders. We can elect you to a leadership position, but we can't make you a leader by that. So you have so many people that are in leadership positions, but that are incapable of providing leadership. This country, as a result, has a huge leadership vacuum. Placeholders, no action. But also, in the same breath, it is important to understand what everywhere on earth, bale zanu yabo. Akula lizwe lingela zanu, whatever name eliphiweyo khona ngale. Izanu njani ikhona kuleyo ndawo. But ama citizens enza ukuthi izanu yabo ingafanile yethu. Akula lizwe lingela ama CIO, whatever they are called khona ngale. But ama citizens enza ukuthi awabo ama CIO angafanele wethu. Akula lizwe lingela ama war vet. But kuleyo ndawo But kuleyo ndawo is the citizens abenza ukuthi ama-ovate abo angafanele awethu. It's the responsibility ungakhangela kulamaphathi amaningi even kubo-America khona ngale ngiyangiyikhangele ngithi kodwa le phela yizanunyana le. I-behavior yakhona uyabuya ibona ukuthi la kule ngozi. But abantu ndike labona lo ophume ekhathesi ngabe ubese Burundi ngabe ukhona. Ngiyalinganisa iBurundi sorry kangiqali ngitsho nje ukuthi ngabe bebusa iBurundi ngabe unjani ngabe ukhona kwale ini ama citizens akuleyo ndawo. So we need to take responsibility. The situation yethu is not unique in any way. We enabled this system to take root. When they started killing people, not everybody was outraged. Abanye they kept what? Voting for it. Singakhohlwa ukuthi in 1985 even those who knew ukuthi ZANU and the system has slaughtered people in Ndebele and still voted for it. Even though they didn't know that they were enabling the system to adopt a culture of killing people. They still voted for it. So the problem is that we did not unite right at the inception of the problem we have. Until it was too thorough, too complete, too comprehensive for us, to an extent ukuthi namhlanje it is so much, so well, it's entrenched, but it can still be taken care of with active citizens, abazwisisa responsibility. Zimbabweans are too weak. If you see there is a highway here, all you need now is to take a rope, a reflector, and you put it across. Come back after a month, it will still be there. Cars will be turning and turning that side and everybody, no one will be asking any questions about it. You can put cones and close the main street on Como in Bulawayo and come back a week, even the council won't act. That's the Zimbabwean culture. We don't question, we don't do anything. Uwindwi sisuse khathi phakathi esemakhokho bathi no kulamapholisa phambi badala semphenduka simbonge siqume ngenyawo. Akula CIA ekhombile. Akula masota, nothing is militarized. It's a culture wrong eyethu. We are so grateful ukuthi at least usisondeze edorobheni. Even if we paid for uba sedorobheni. And labana abantu there is nothing kabulali lwana mfana. Gala military. But we are so bent on ukusubmit. We are so submissive. Angifuna ukuthi ndithiye seliribhela. Thank you sengihamba.
Thank you Mr. Ncube. Kulo mbuzo wakho lapha Mr. Ncube.
Ncube umbuzo wami ukuthi is it a question ukuthi si weak kumbe ukuthi siyagula? We have been abused for so long. 40 years kambe sure usazukhala day in and day out. Kufana lo muntu oabuzwayo. Nxa ungazumtshela ukuthi uyabuzwa kazwisisi. Kumele aqale umfundisa abone ukuthi for sure ngiyabuzwa ahile la yazixolele. Usizakwazi ukuthi asukuma la yazimele. Engazi
liqiniso elikhulu ukuthi i4 decades of ukumisirulwa has produced a unique citizen. First and foremost, before you talk about a system, a Zimbabwean is completely different from other people. He has been modeled to submit. Over years. First, we were told we were unique, sifundile, whatever it means. So that abatoitoya emgwaqweni ngabangafundanga ngithi kunjani. We were made to believe ukuthi we don't have to take the routes we are supposed to take in order to bring about change. So we have been modeled in many ways, through violence, through conditioning, through socialization for the 4 decades that my brother is talking about. So much so that sesigula. That's very true. Sesigula, we are so emasculated. We have no energy anymore. Now ngumama yindoda eku-abusayo. But othi uyavula icase epolice station ubuye uyikhangele futhi uyikhangele uyizwele. Somehow we have the same attitudes. The system is so rotten, is so grounded, so well established on the ground, but we still prop it up. I have given examples of what all of us know that udaba lweGugurawundi is never going to be addressed with the perpetrators in power. But who is giving the perpetrator the room to stay in power is actually the survivors in Ndebele. Bona bafanele basuse yiba bagcina umuntu who is not going to bring about the change odabeni lweGugurawundi. Again yikugula lokho. But also we have to ask ourselves questions. Why is it abantu obabunyathi in 1985 babe seqa izidumbu, not the theory. Izidumbu besiyavotela izaphu. Beseqa izidumbu. Kugcwele iGugurawundi everywhere. Khathesi we can't do it. What has been the generational shift in terms of activism? Ukuthi bona they could stand their ground regardless of the circumstances. Tina, we want to explain why we are doing nothing. Bona they explained why they were doing something. Tina will always say baza kuhambe baza riga lani liyakwazi into lezi kazisebenzi vele as he was saying. Ikugula lokhana the conditioning that we have been put through to an extent that we are now submissive to izinto imithetho engekhoyo. My brother spoke about the fact that most of the things that are being done are actually practiced. I remember when POSA was enacted, we had this debate yokuthi kanti vele iyadinga yini ukuthi siyecela ipermission emapoliseni. But we created a culture kuwa amapolisi ukuthi akulindele ukuthi uzabuye uzocela. Bazi bacina sebe expect ukuthi ucele lawa wacina ucela. Kwacina sekuhlezi. Angithi. So la khathesi there are so many things ezi-illegal ezenziwayo. Khathesi lihlezi khona lapha lifundile. Abantu abenezikole amankazana avunyela ukweluka inwele. Abantu abamnyama ikhiwa abafunda layo lelukile. Angitsho lina lisema private, ngitsho kweze government. What's wrong with that? If you are failing to deal with into ezingako izanu ngayithini. Let's deal with izinto let's create any culture of action. Action even ezintweni ezincane. Singabe submit to everything eyenzakala. Utitsha athi lokhu yikho lokhu kuyathiwa bhatala ama$10 siyakhipha. No question. Umntwana akabuyile receipt. Bakithi, we must act at a localized level. Act everywhere where we have an opportunity to act. At least it will create a culture in us of taking on oppression. The oppression in schools, the oppression in hospitals, the oppression by the police in the streets, and everywhere. Kumele sihloniphe amalungelo ethu, singahloniphi perpetrator we injustices against us.